Hi guys, I'm Sarah, the Real Simple Mama, and my video today is going to be called What Sucks About Counting Macros. And why I wanted to make this video is if you're like me, you are someone who has been chasing some weight-related goals, whether it's weight loss or weight gain or more muscle definition or whatever. And for example, you have stumbled across macros, you feel like you have a pretty good understanding of what macros are. And if you don't, I made a video on intro to counting macros, which you should check out, which is the full explanation on the science and the breakdown and how it works and how it's different than just calorie counting and all that other stuff. So let's say you have a pretty good understanding of macros and you're feeling like you're ready to jump in. This video is just a fair warning so that you have an idea of what is coming in regards to counting macros, because I am someone who has been doing macros for probably about 8 months. And I believe in the science. I believe in the concept. It makes a lot of sense to me. I think it's a healthy, safe, very educated way for you to achieve whatever weight-related goal you may have. But I need to be honest with you and let you know there are some things that kind of suck about it. And so what I'm going to do is speak to you. I'm not a trainer. I'm not a coach. I'm not a nutritionist. I'm somebody who has been working on weight loss and strengthening and muscle definition and stuff for years. And like I said, I've been tracking macros for about 8 months and working with a trainer. But that's my first disclaimer, is that I'm not a nutritionist or a coach or anything like that. My other disclaimer is I'm not affiliated with anybody. So you might hear me reference an app, like I use MyFitnessPal to track my calories, for example. I'm on the Macros Inc. Facebook group, which does have coaches who can check your macros and give you other advice for free, but I'm not affiliated with anybody. So the first is finding your macros. The first thing that sucks about tracking macros is just figuring out what those numbers are. Because here's how it works. Any diet, and I did Weight Watchers for years, I'm familiar with the Jenny Craig program and a whole bunch of other of those programs. When you sign up for any of them, what happens? You create an account, right? And then they get some demographic, like biological information from you. They want to know how old you are, how tall you are, how much you weigh, if you have any diet restrictions or allergies, how active you are, all of that usual stuff, right? And then after learning about you for about 13 seconds, they say, oh, okay, here's what your calories should be. Now, that's not a nutritionist or somebody who has sat with you for a while and done an interview and really got to know you, right? That's just a basic estimate. So for my example, we'll be talking about weight loss. So if I say, yes, I want to lose a pound a week or half a pound a week or whatever, and I put in all of my information, it's going to spit out some macros for me on a macro calculator like the one on Macros Inc. But that doesn't mean that those numbers are absolutely perfect. So the first thing that sucks about counting macros is you just finding out what your numbers are. Now, what I recommend you do, and again, I'm not getting any kind of affiliation or any kind of benefit from this, is at minimum, go to Macros Inc., type in your information, get your basic macro breakdown of this is how much protein, how much fat, how much carbs in grams, right? So grams protein, grams fat, grams carbs, and this is how many calories you should be at every day to achieve weight loss, for example. But then take those numbers and go play around with a couple of other macro calculators. Get on the Macros Inc. Facebook group. It's thousands of members from all over the world. It's coaches, it's people who are obese, it's people who are trying to lose weight, it's people who have been in bodybuilding competitions, it's trainers. And you can go in there and get a free macro check. And here's how it works. The way to find that sweet spot, those numbers that are going to get exactly the results that you want. So like in my case, the numbers that are going to help me be in a deficit and lose fat and gain muscle at the same time. My trainer used 3 different macro calculators, and then she also sat and interviewed me and talked with me more about my medical conditions and what my day-to-day lifestyle looks like. And then she was able to tweak the numbers a little bit so that I got something that was specially catered to me. But still, that doesn't mean that those numbers are the magic formula that's going to get you what you want. And that brings me to the second thing that sucks about tracking macros, is you're not going to know if those numbers are the right numbers for you or not until you've been tracking consistently for 2 weeks. That's right. It takes 2 weeks for those consistent, and that's the word, those consistent habits that you're doing, those consistent numbers, the use of those same grams and those same calories every day for 2 weeks, for you to really be able to tell. It's like doing a science experiment on your body, for you to tell if your hypothesis was correct or not. So for example, when I started out in July, we looked at my previous data, because that's, again, another thing that my trainer could do to help. She could look at my diet info when I was coming from Weight Watchers. And we looked and saw, okay, well, you were way down at like a starvation deficit of like 1,300 calories. Let's bump you up. And so she bumped me up to like 1,750. And I tried that for a couple of weeks. And number one, that was a huge change for me. And number two, it didn't work. But it took 2 weeks of me doing that, being dedicated every day for 2 weeks, for my trainer to be able to say, okay, yeah, we need to tweak your numbers a little bit. And that's going to happen. That's one of the things that sucks about macros. But you don't know that those numbers work or they don't work if you're not tracking accurately. And I talk about that a lot in my intro to Counting Macros video. It's also an article on realsimplemama.com if you prefer to read it as opposed to listening to me. But what you need to do is track everything. I recommend pre-tracking, which means at night after my kids have gone to bed and I've made my tea or my pre-tracked glass of wine or whatever, I sit down and I look at what am I making the family for dinner tomorrow night. And then I have usually just 2 or 3 options for lunch or 2 or 3 options for breakfast. I keep my breakfasts and lunches really simple. And then that way I can pre-track the night before everything that I'm going to eat and drink the next day. Now that includes everything. That includes if you eat gummy vitamins, there's calories in those. That includes your coffee creamer, which I know it's like, you probably don't want to know how much calories you're using in your coffee in the morning if you are a daily coffee drinker. But it includes everything. It includes what you eat or drink after 10 p.m. It includes gum and snacks and stuff in your car that you're mindlessly eating. Everything needs to be tracked for 2 weeks. And if you've seen any of my other videos, you know that I am a data fiend. I love data analysis. I love numbers. I love looking at patterns and information and being able to figure out, okay, well, this happened because this. And you're really doing that with your body. Because here's the deal. MyFitnessPal or any macro calculating app, any of those tracking apps, they don't care if you track honestly or not, right? You've paid your money to them if it's a paid app, and if it's a free app, then I mean, either way, they don't care. It doesn't hurt that company or benefit that company if you track honestly or not. To me, and the way I think about it is if I don't track honestly, I'm lying to myself. I am hurting myself and sabotaging myself. It's like somebody shoving Oreos in my mouth while I sleep to trick me. And you're wasting your time. So respect yourself enough to tell the truth in your tracking. It's like going to confession. And that sometimes has stopped me from eating or drinking something that I really didn't need, because it's like, okay, if you put this in your mouth, you've got to go track it. And your trainer can see you're MyFitnessPal. You can have friends on MyFitnessPal who can see your stuff. And it's like, and it's linked to my trainer app also, where she puts in my workouts. So it's kind of like having to own up, right? Not just to yourself, because your body's going to show it whether you track it or not, but also that accountability. So you have to track everything honestly for 2 weeks, because otherwise, if you go to the Macros Inc. group, right, you go back to Facebook and you say, well, I've been using these macros, but I'm not losing weight and I don't know why. The first thing they're going to ask you is, have you tracked everything honestly for at least 2 weeks? Because if not, that's what we're going to tell you to do. You've got to have that data first if you want anyone to be able to analyze it and help you out. The third thing, and I have a separate video about this, the third out of the 4 things I'm going to tell you about, is that you have to track everything, right? But that means you have to measure it and you have to weigh it, sometimes twice. And this is what I mean. Let's use my example again. I'm trying to lose weight, right? And I use MyFitnessPal. Now, MyFitnessPal is a great app in that most foods that you can buy at the store, whether it's a specific brand or a specific flavor of something or a variety, usually if you type it into search in MyFitnessPal, it pops up. The problem is, though, you can't trust that that data is accurate. And that means even something like a protein bar, right? It's pre-measured, it's cut in the factory, it's individually wrapped up, nutrition info's on the label, bam, you can scan that barcode and you're good to go. No, you can't. What I'm suggesting that you do is don't assume and don't eyeball stuff in the beginning. Yes, that means you need to get a tablespoon, to use this other example, and measure out 2 tablespoons of coffee creamer. I can guarantee you it's probably less than what you think. And I actually won't drink coffee most days anymore. I've given it up and I drink green tea instead, because I hated wasting between 70 and 100 calories in the morning just for my coffee. It was like, it made me want to cry. And the sugar-free stuff is terrible. And almond milk is terrible. Like, I wanted the creamer that I wanted. So now I just use it as a treat a couple times a week. I don't have it every morning. So you need to scan labels and you need to be inputting stuff as detailed and as accurately as you can. Don't just say, I'm going to have a cup of grapes, because if you think about it, if it's a cup full of big grapes, that's going to be a different amount of calories than if it's a cup full of smaller grapes, and depending on what kind they are. So you need to really weigh and measure stuff out as accurately as possible. That means if it's liquids, you're going to use measuring cups. And if it's any kind of solid, then you need to use a food scale, and you want to use grams. Why? Because it's way more specific than just ounces. Ounces is rounding up and not being nearly specific enough. Now, this is something you've got to get used to doing. And I know if you're like me, you're making 3 or 4 different lunches at a time. Everybody's got their order. It's like a little short order restaurant. I know, it's crazy. And at dinner time, you're trying to get everybody fed and everybody sat down, and then you've got to clean up. And you're also sitting over here messing with your food scale. It does get easier, I promise. And you can see I have a whole separate video about how to measure while counting macros that has to do with anything that changes its volume or its weight significantly. Like if you've ever noticed when you cook bacon or when you cook any kind of meat, it shrinks a lot, right? That means you have to weigh it before you cook it, and then you have to weigh it again. And I explain the why and the how and everything in that video, so check that out. The opposite goes for pasta. Pasta soaks up the water that it's boiling in, and pasta increases in its volume. So you have to weigh the pasta before you cook it and then after you cook it. So that's another thing that sucks about counting macros. I know with some of those other diets, it's like you just pull out the packaged thing, right? Excuse me, the Weight Watchers Cheesy Crisps or the Jenny Craig frozen dinner. And it's like, tell me what to eat diet plan. And that's great for convenience. But you are not taking ownership for what you're eating and why. You are not measuring it and really taking the time to just know what the heck you're putting in your body and know what you're putting in your mouth. Like, well, Weight Watchers told me to eat this, so I'm eating this. And, points and all of that stuff is great. And I did it for years. But if you think about it, you don't really pay attention to how much protein are you eating, or are you eating way too many carbs, or yeah, it's great that bananas are 0 points, but you can't really tell me that eating a banana doesn't cost anything to my body. Of course it does. So that's the third thing that sucks about counting macros, is you're going to have to measure and weigh everything. Now, all of these things, I promise, will get easier and faster with time. You'll have your recipes saved in MyFitnessPal, for example. You can save entire meals, which is what I do. This is my stock breakfast. Bam, stick it in there and it's all automatically tracked. And I've gotten a lot faster at measuring 2 or 3 tablespoons of egg whites and weighing out all of my stuff, because now it's just a habit. But in the beginning, it is tedious. It is time consuming. You may have to buy a couple of little things. Okay, the fourth and the last thing is, let's say that you have finally found your sweet spot of macro numbers. You've got your macros, they're working, you're getting the results that you want. Tracking is now habitual, you feel good about it, you're getting faster at measuring and weighing stuff. Everything is great. And then you hit a plateau. And if you've been in the weight loss community, or you've been in any kind of like dieting community, or if you've been doing this for a while and weighing yourself, you know that a plateau is when you've been losing weight or you've been getting whatever results you want, and then it just flattens out, right? Like flatlining. And you're still putting in all of the work. You're still measuring and tracking and working out and running and doing all of the other things that you do, but your body has figured out your trick. Your body has basically said, oh, okay, I figured out what you were doing and what you changed up to make me lose weight or gain muscle or whatever. That's not going to work anymore. So the fourth and the last thing that sucks about counting macros is that eventually your macros are going to have to change. Now, there is light at the end of this tunnel, because you think, oh my gosh, like I'm going to have to go all the way through this all over again. No, you won't. Because first of all, if you found your macros correctly the first time, chances are that for, again, to use my example for weight loss, for me, if I get into that sweet spot of finding my macros, those macros are probably going to work for months. It is not nearly as overwhelming as it was in the beginning, where I wasn't used to tracking and weighing and measuring and doing all of that stuff. And I didn't have all of these resources of where I could go ask people and talk about inspiring stories and all of that other stuff. So it's not going to feel like starting over. All you're going to have to do is touch base again on a macros Facebook group or other community or online forum. Talk to your trainer, talk to other people at your gym. Find somebody to talk to and say, okay, these are the macros that I was doing. Here's my tracker that has all of my data. But you won't be alone, and it won't be like starting over. So you'll be able to find those resources. You'll be able to tweak your numbers the way you need to. But know that that's only a season of your life, and it's going to get better, and you'll find the numbers again because you've been through it once. You figured it out. And the first time's going to be the hardest. So those are the 4 things that suck about counting macros. Let's review. So the first thing that can really suck is finding those numbers in the beginning. Just figuring out what your macros are that will really, really work. And the real thing that stinks about it is number 2, which is the fact that you're going to have to track consistently for 2 weeks before you really know. So don't be like, oh, I tracked everything today, I was in a deficit, and go get on the scale tomorrow morning and it doesn't say what you want it to say, right? The third thing is that you have to measure and weigh everything. Don't assume, don't just trust nutrition labels, weigh everything. Number 4, just realizing that even if you get your results and you're trucking along and you are in a deficit, for example, and so you're losing weight for a while, know that eventually you're gonna have to change things up. Right? Just like if you've been working out for a while, eventually your body doesn't respond the same. So you need to increase the weight or increase the reps or increase your distance or whatever. Okay, a couple things in closing, and this is the positivity here at the end of the video. The first is, like I said, as someone who has been actively dieting for over 3 years, I really do believe that macros is the way to go. And obviously I'm not getting any money for saying that. Nobody's paying me to say that. It really just makes sense because you are taking in accountability and ownership yourself of what you're putting in your body. You're thinking about making sure that your body has enough protein so that the integrity of your muscles doesn't get lost by you just running off and burning off all of your muscle mass as you try to lose weight. It's a healthy way to do it, and it makes sense to me. The next thing that I want to say is that everything that you are looking at as far as measurements and inches and the scale and all of that stuff, please don't look at it as that's what you're going to use to determine your self-worth or if you're going to have a good day or a bad day. And I say that as somebody who has been affected by those things before. Pick out some goal pieces of clothing, take progress photos, do NSVs, which is non-scale victories. It's something else that you can do or that you've noticed or that you see because you are leading a healthier life. But remember, the scale, it's just a data point. It's just like a food scale, right? It's just showing you numbers. Track those things in a journal or in an app, have that data, and then move on. But don't let it just rule your life and control your world, because that's not fair to you. So think about something healthy. Think about ways that you can encourage yourself on this journey. Join these communities, join these forums, go get a goal swimsuit, or think about something that you want to do nice for yourself once you've hit some goals, but try not to make it a quantifiable thing. And I'm a failure if I haven't lost 40 pounds by my birthday or something like that. Okay, so again, I think macros make a lot of sense. They are working for me. I enjoy it. I'm in the habit now. And sometimes it's kind of annoying, but these 4 things that suck about it, it still makes it really, really worth it for me to count macros. So I hope this video has been helpful. Again, I have 2 other videos and I have more content on realsimplemama.com in regards to my experience with Weight Watchers, how to work out at home with kids, as well as, like I said, the intro to counting macros, which is all the basic information, like us sitting in a coffee shop explaining what macros are, and then how to measure while counting macros, which shows you how to take a raw piece of chicken and cook it and then weigh it again and how to track all of that stuff. So let me know in the comments what you think. I hope that this has been encouraging and educational, and I really appreciate you watching. Thanks and good luck to you.